Atoms with Consciousness, Matter with Curiosity by Richard Feynman. There are the rushing waves, mountains of molecules, each stupidly minding its own business, trillions apart, yet forming white surf in unison. Ages on ages, before any eyes could see, year after year, thunderously pounding the shore as now. For whom? For what? On a dead planet with no life to entertain, never a rest, tortured by energy, wasted prodigiously by the sun, poured into space, and might makes the sea soar. Deep in the sea, all molecules repeat the patterns of one another till complex new ones are formed. They make others like themselves. And a new dance starts, growing in size and complexity, living things, masses of atoms, DNA, protein, dancing a pattern ever more intricate. Out of the cradle onto dry land, here it is, standing, atoms with consciousness, matter with curiosity. Stands of the sea, wonders of wondering, I, a universe of atoms, an atom in the universe. That was a long one, and that was a poem by Richard Feynman, which, if you paid attention, seems to imply, going from the beginning until now, life and consciousness, which is the topic of today's conversation. But first of all, let me say what this is, the show name, right? SG2 on Space. That's where you're listening to. We're going live right now if you're listening on Wednesday night at 6:30 to 7 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Go on Facebook, follow me, follow us, facebook.com/The Shen Show, SHEN. Support me, patreon.com/SG2 on Space. And as always, we will have on here Dr. Leonard Kramer. There he is. There you go. Yes, we're both having headphones this time, large ones too. Yeah. All right. So last time we were talking about quantum mechanics and how it's related to consciousness, and we segued into talking about possibility of how physics may or may not answer the question of free will. Now, there are some people out there who believes that physics may have explained away free will. Now, let's go back a little bit. First of all, what is free will? Maybe I should ask Leonard that since he brought it up.
Hi, Chen.
Hi.
Hi. Well, the idea that we're free to choose our path. In other words, that we can make decisions, that we have free wills to do whatever we want to do, and that we're also responsible for our choices. It's sort of really vital to our sense of self, and so I mean that's what we mean by free will, or the freedom to choose our path.
So from what I see here, free will only exists when you have possibilities, like alternative options. So for instance, right now I could choose to, I don't know, drink this water. Or I could have chosen not doing that. So
right. But physics says the universe, the way the universe operates according to a set of rules that progress forward in time, and so we have this idea that there's a concept of determinism, where the current state of the universe, in whatever way that's expressed, then uniquely identifies a path forward into the future. So the state of the universe right now then determines the state in the future. So the idea that we are actually an origin, that any one of our minds is the origin of a decision, or of new information is really excluded by these principles that are well known in physics. And so it's a conundrum. And recently, I've been seeing a lot of talk about it among physicists that basically dismiss the notion that you're free to choose, that our history is determined, it's predetermined.
Well, I mean, I can see that from like a mechanical clockwork perspective, so to speak. Like, let's just say, like from a pure physics standpoint, let's just say I shake this water. We can predict, knowing where the water is initially and knowing how much force I'm applying and applying some physical laws accounting for temperature or whatever else. You could predict how this water fluctuates and where its motion is going, where its motion is. But that our brains and the concept of consciousness seems infinitely more complicated than me juggling this water or me even driving a car, like that's a combustion engine, right? Thermodynamics, you can predict all that. But our brain, like how our neurons are put together, all these chemicals,
right?
I find it hard to imagine that somehow they're just physical laws that's predetermined, so to speak, that just, that
right.
How does that?
Right.
Yeah.
And I also can't quite conceive of this paradox that we have, and yet the way it could happen is that well, you use the example of if I go into Baskin and Robbins and get some ice cream, and so I want to get ice cream. If I do that, I also am on a diet, right? So I can get ice cream, or I don't want to diet. So and yet the notion that I decide to do something is already determined, and also my perception that I have made this choice is also predetermined. So it's almost like a movie has been projected and has already been decided for me. So
well, I mean that how should I put it? Choosing what flavor of ice cream may have is that's a fairly simple scenario, let's just say. But
well, I mean, if I go into the voting booth and I decide who I'm going to vote for, I want to think that it's because it's something I decided. But in fact, there's influences from outside, and this is true. I mean,
of course.
and yeah. So what physicists, I think, object to is the notion that any new information is being generated by the brain, and it means, and information means a certain thing in physics. It's not just the letters on a page or whatever. Right. It has to do with distinctions. So,
but that actually really this whole thing. Let me just express my view that there's definitely free will, and that we are we have consciousness, so we're able to make free will. Without consciousness, we have no free will. Anyways. Point is, I imagine a scenario where, say, that ice cream shop, for instance. What if I decided to not go to that ice cream shop at all? Like, let's just say I'm thinking, okay, I need to watch my diet and then go get a yogurt or something. Or that day I could have just decided to go eat ice cream. But you see, like, we always have these various decisions, options that come into our head, right? It's not like I instantly say, okay, I'm going to eat ice cream. We're not automatons that have no like balancing of the pros and cons and what we really want, temptations and so forth, right? It's all juggling around in our head, and then we make a decision on what to do. And so with that, I mean, there's an infinite level of complexity here, and sometimes it may seem even random. Like, for instance, yesterday, I may have decided, hey, I want to take a walk outside. I mean, I didn't have to. I actually did not take a walk outside, but I thought about it. I didn't do it. So the point is, like, how it's hard to say that this is something which like you crank up a clock, right, and it just ticks. Like, it's hard for me to see that. So one thing I want to bring up is this was something I was reading, and it's on this. It was on a Boston Review article, and it said uh, an agent's future choices can be open at a psychological level, even if the underlying physics is deterministic. Though this may sound counterintuitive, the distinction between determinism and indeterminism cannot be drawn independently of the level of description which we're looking at the world. Okay. Importantly, here it says a system can behave deterministically at one level, say the microphysical one, and indeterministically at another, say the level associated with some higher, complicated system. For instance, in chemistry, biology, meteorology, and so forth. So one thing I was thinking of is like the butterfly effect, right? Like chaos theory, right? So you have well, actually, I mean, predicting the weather, for instance, very difficult to do. You may be able to predict the motions of the molecules, whatever, going this way, going that way here, but you're not going to be predict when the next hurricane is going to be like 5 years down the line, or even 1 year, or things like that. So,
but would you say that
the
hurricane is would you say the hurricane is making a decision, or is it just responding to external forces? In other words, this butterfly effect, that the chaotic processes really doesn't rescue us from this notion. Particles in the universe is made of particles. It's made of matter. It's made of energy, and it proceeds along a deterministic path. Even though there are random events, there's certainly important random things that are happening. Quantum mechanics is actually the fundamental mystery of quantum mechanics is that the universe creates random things happening. We used to think that the word random, the random things used to be a part of like the properties of what we observe, but in fact, quantum mechanics has shown us that it is actually a part of nature. So, and that goes all the way up. Because we're made of particles, particles operate according to physical principles, including quantum mechanics. Those random events go all the way up to the macroscopic scale. And so while you might be in the voting booth and you're on the fence and you don't know who you're going to vote for, you might make a little random, it might be a little random thing. I'm going to vote for this guy. No, I'm going to vote for, and it could be a matter of your mood, but still, nevertheless, there is no physical principle that will allow you to allow us to say that there's new information being introduced. That one of the ideas has to do with all entropy and the beginnings of threads of information that progresses through from the Big Bang all the way to the heat death of the universe. And so we're not going to be having any new threads coming in from outside. So the conclusion, I think, of most of physicists who are thinking along these lines, and is that it's really a predetermined event who I vote for, and my sense of having made a free choice is also a matter of molecules of bouncing around and responding to the physical processes. So it's that's oh, what do we got here?
Yes, do you see that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're basically saying, right? In a sense. I mean,
I'm saying that the guy the domino that steps out of line, that was already determined, or at least the probability of that happening was already determined all the way back at the time of the Big Bang. And so all of history is proceeding forward, unless now there is a way out of this. Now it could be that quantum mechanics actually does. You see, the thing is, if we do have free choice, then we should see some physical manifestation of that in nature. In other words, we should be looking for quantum mechanical random events that are correlated in some strange way, almost like little pieces of proto consciousness, in inanimate objects, and that could be a fruitful thing to look for, and kind of gets to what we were talking about with Roger Penrose last week about looking for a quantum mechanical tap into the randomness of nature. So
that actually, I'm going to backtrack a little bit and explain to the viewers that what I initially talked about chaos theory, that, by the way, is a not a good argument for free will, because chaos theory, it's basically determining. It's a prediction. It doesn't mean that just because you can't predict something doesn't mean that it wouldn't actually be predetermined to happen that way. So the quantum mechanics that Leonard is talking about is fundamentally, how should I put it, random in a sense, with probabilities. So that I agree. If we're going to have free will, then there definitely, I believe, from the physics perspective, that it is going to be due to quantum mechanics. Now, the question here, Leonard, is that I understand quantum mechanics for the uncertainty. For instance, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where you can't determine was it momentum and position at the same. The more you know about one, the less. That's just
complementary variables. Yeah.
Right. So there's always that, but quantum mechanical phenomenon like that, as well as superposition and all these things, it primarily affects very tiny particles, microscopic particles. So for us humans, or even like, I don't know, this pen, which is massive compared to like quantum mechanics applying for it, how does that work? I mean, in that sense,
well, I'm afraid it's made it. I think I alluded to it earlier. I mean, everything is made of matter. Everything is made of particles. The interactions between the particles and the energy is based on a quantum mechanical physics, and that goes all the way up. And now the effects get the uncertainty gets washed out, but the effects of random events, quantum mechanical events at the neuron level, like
got it.
The neurochemistry in our brains are chemical processes. Those are governed by quantum, the quantum transitions and quantum mechanical processes. So
that definitely makes sense. Yeah, last time we did talk about that. There actually is a very interesting Scientific American article, called "Finding Free Will," and in there, the author says something really interesting. He says we cannot rule out the possibility that So in other words, it is possible that quantum indeterminacy leads to behavior indeterminacy. And the reason is what you said, Leonard. Basically, essentially, all these neurons are firing and all these things. Fundamentally, what is doing, the biomolecules that underlying, our nerves and whatever else is going on that makes up our consciousness, undergo their own randomness, probabilistic, due to quantum mechanics, and hence it affects the way we think. And interestingly enough, the way we think affects the biochemistry as well. So it's kind of a feedback, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, anyways, point is,
I'm just saying, physics doesn't have an understanding of or physics would deny, I would say, at a deep level, the notion that there's information being created at the at the level of consciousness, and that your notion that you have created or you have made a decision is an illusion, and that other than a probabilistic sense, other than in that manner. So I know that's kind of depressing, but it shouldn't
Do
be.
you?
Here's the
Mhm.
thing. Here's the good thing, and you got to give me time to say this. All right. I know
Go
I'm
ahead.
running on, but once you come to the realization that that what the decisions that you make are influenced by outside, okay, they're not coming from you, right? Then you become more cautious about what you hear. You become more introspective. You understand how you can be deceived by I don't know, politicians or people talking to
Mhm.
you, trying to convince you of things. And so that is actually a very positive uh, output or outgrowth of this recognition that your your will is determined by the influences that are coming in from outside. So um,
This is a
willful
contradiction,
people.
though.
No, it's not. It's we're particles, okay, and we're responding to the forces around us, right? And so whatever we do is predetermined by the impulses that we're subjected to. So you come
But
to that conclusion, and you become less. I think people who are very willful, who are very these people who know
mhm.
everything. They know the answer to everything. They don't need to listen to what other people say because they think they're the source of information. They think they're the source, and so it's. I think it's very helpful. This is not a science thing, but I think it's very helpful to recognize that you are being influenced. Even though the illusion is so pervasive and so clear that you have this will, but in fact, physics, science is saying otherwise. Mm, I feel like I'm not
Well,
explaining it really the way I mean, but
I
hopefully I can
think
get
I
through.
understand.
Yeah.
I I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, you're saying a lot of the decisions that we make, that we think we're making, are not so much. It wasn't even decisions to start with because we've already been influenced by external, whatever the external system,
Right.
to make that
And
decision.
yeah, and so be aware of that. If you're aware of that, then you can live a better life. You can get along with people better, um, and you learn more things. So
I completely agree with that, with you on that. From a yeah, I agree with that assessment, but I don't agree with the fact that if you have that, let's just say I'm aware of this. Oh my gosh, I'm aware that I'm currently being influenced by what Leonard's saying. Well, is that really? Yes. Is that like me being aware of that changes, like that in effect is you affecting me, right? And so I'm actually being influenced here already, so to speak. So I mean, I don't know. Like in that sense, there's you're almost implying that being aware of it somehow makes it possible for me to have free will. But by that same logic, it doesn't, because being aware of it is still being influenced.
well,
Like,
being aware of it tends to make you less uh, arrogant, less and to listen better, to be a better listener. Um, I guess that's
hmm.
people who know the answer to everything. All
Oh
right,
yeah,
it's
it's so
because
annoying.
see that's what I'm talking about. If you have recognition that the decisions, things are going along according to the influences that are all around you. I think you're less likely to be such a person. But
that is really that. Yeah, no, I mean I can see what you're saying. Now the other question I have here is for you, Leonard. What do you actually believe? Do you think that we do have free will or that we do not?
I think I don't understand how we could have free will, freedom to decide, in the sense that most people feel that we do. I think that I kind of agree with the physics.
Or it's the
I know.
What that okay. I'm gonna have to disagree on the.
Well, of course, everyone will. Yes. How can you not? The illusion is so perfect.
If the illusion is so perfect, they might as well not be an illusion.
I know we're running out of time, but there's other evidence. There's other evidence of associated with entanglement that we could talk about maybe another time. But also some issues that are associated with that kind of indicate that there is no. Yeah, there is no. All of history is laid out from the time of the Big Bang to the end, to the heat death of the universe, and that it somehow exists already in some respect. So
very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
That's what actually I wonder. I would love to bring the show back to talking about space in the next episode. So I'm thinking now, you mentioned quantum entanglement. Can we relate that to some, like to space, not just the microscopic level, but what we observe?
Well, we could talk about we didn't we could talk about I don't know. I guess we have to think about it a little bit, Shen. We could talk about lensing, gravitational lensing, and that might be something that viewers would be interested in space.
That actually, yeah, that might be a good thing.
So Einstein rings. Maybe we should talk about that. But which is gravitational lensing, where you have entangled photons that that span an entire galaxy.
Okay, in that case, why not? Let's
why
do
not?
it next
Let's
time.
talk about entanglement.
Yeah, let's bring this is all. This seems to be very philosophical. This current discussion. So we're gonna bring back some, hopefully, space realism stuff that we can physics. All right. So one last thing.
Yeah, but it is true that physics has been saying a lot about it lately, and so I have been hearing a lot about it.
That is also true. I was going to say we are definitely running short on time.
We have to talk about UFOs.
I do have to talk about this recent book that I discovered, which I have not purchased yet, but I might because I love this weird stuff. Apparently, there's this guy out there who, by a Dr. Michael P. Masters, who's a professor of biological anthropology at Montana Technological University, who thinks that UFOs are not piloted by aliens, but more likely that they are humans of the distant future, and they just want to return to the past. So these are extra tempestrials. So why does he think so? Because he says these UFO aliens are typically described as bipedal, so two legs, hairless, human-like beings with large brains, large eyes, small noses, and small mouth. Further, these creatures have the ability to communicate with us in our own languages and possess technology that's advanced, but clearly built upon today's technological prowess. Personally, I think that's kind of silly. But
I wonder why they are I wonder why they're abducting people, and doing experiments on them. I don't know.
I thought that was just a rumor. I mean, I didn't.
Maybe I don't know.
You know what?
I don't buy any of that stuff, but I mean, I'm open to it. I
think I'm actually gonna. We're still talking about quantum entanglement and whatnot next time, but I do want to bring up some crazy possibility that that there are visitors from the future coming into the past, because there's people who said that, and there's various weird artifacts that's been discovered. So let's put that in the last couple minutes in the next week's segment. And by the way, for any of you that's actually interested in purchasing the book, if this is a funny title, it's called Identified Flying Objects, a multidisciplinary scientific approach to the UFO phenomenon, which is funny because identified versus unidentified, All right. So now we've reached the conclusion of our show. Thank you guys for listening to SG2 on Space every Wednesday night from 6:30 to 7 Houston time, U.S. Central Time. And this is the only weekly space show in Houston and probably Texas. And so thank you, Dr. Kramer here, as always. And last words, guys. See the green thing? Look up, because you never know what you will see.
Wow.
Which might be a identify flying object, So
yeah, I just put my arm up in the air, but it was not my conscious decision. It's just one of those things,
I realize I do that a lot. You're right.
It's just random, All right, Thank you. Bye bye.